Thank you, Professor Banduri. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, clearly.
Yes, okay, I will continue. Again, I'm Jagat Manatunga from University of Moratuwa, and today we are going to talk about a very, very important topic. I think to me, I consider this as one of the most important part of the conducting of the research. We will see why it is so important. Because now a proper literature review can make you a good researcher, or it will break your research. Right? It will not allow you to compile a good research paper, a thesis, a report. Right? Let us see how literature review might make you a better researcher. I asked Professor Banduni a question. I asked her whether Professor Kaumal conducted a lecture on literature search. Literature search is one thing, reading is the second, and then summarizing is the third, reviewing is the fourth, right? Literature review, now at the very beginning, I have to say that literature review is not just reading and summarizing what you are reading, not just copying and pasting. I think a great majority of the students, they do. When I go through a research report or a thesis or even a paper, what the students do is they just copy and paste, and they think that that is the literature review. No, it is not. Right at the beginning, I have to say that it's not summarizing, right? And always think that when you have a collection of paper, if you read and if you synthesize what is the knowledge contained in the papers, by doing a review, you can consider that as I always say that literature, very good literature review will allow you three things. One is it will be your compass. What does a compass say? What does the compass being used? It is used to find the direction. If you want to go somewhere, a compass will tell you the direction, right? A good literature review will tell you how to get going, how to go together with the research that you have selected. Second, it is your gate pass. It is your ticket, right? It is your ticket. It is your gate pass to go into the research circles. First, to convince your supervisor, and also to to convince the reviewers that the paper that you have submitted is worthwhile, the evaluators of your thesis, right? So it is just like a ticket that you take to register for a degree. You do the research, and then if you don't have the ticket, you can't submit the thesis or the research paper. A good literature review is just like a gate pass or a ticket. Third, it is like a compass. It's like a gate pass or a ticket. Third, it's like a springboard. Springboard. It will take you to another level, right? It will launch your study, and it will place you in a different ground, a new ground, at a higher level, right? So always try to do a proper literature review so that you achieve the objectives that you have in mind. First, uh, I have described these slides in the previous lectures, but I will take these slides again with a different perspective. I'm going to describe these, or I'm going to explain these, the previously explained slides in connection with, in the context of conducting a proper literature review. Right? Now, first, now what is the research? This is the research process that we discussed during the last week. right? You meet with the supervisor and you set the ground and to discuss further. And second, you carry out a literature review. Why do you want to carry out the literature review? You need to know what you are going to do, right? So once you meet the supervisor, the second step would be to go back home, go back to the lab, and then find some literature and read, right? And third, once you read, you develop a topic because there's no point in meeting the supervisor again without having the topic well defined, without knowing your research objective or without knowing what your objectives are, right? So something like, I mean, you can be very broad in that in this stage because you are still beginning to conduct research, right? So you will develop a research. For example, if you are planning to do some research on the climate change, say climate change impact in Sri Lanka, that is a very broad theme. You can't make that your research topic. Instead, you can narrow down the climate change or your temperature rise or something, and you have to formulate it in a way that you the research topic is a doable one, right? So, for example, rather than just saying that solving climate related impacts in Colombo, you may say roof gardening, say green roofs to reduce daytime temperature, daytime temperature inside a building or something, right? Very specific rather than just saying temperature rises. Then the fourth bullet point. Then once you have your objectives, your methods ready, you conduct the research. You carry out the experiments, interviews. Uh, so you carry out your research experiments, interviews, surveys, modeling, whatever that you want to do, and then once you have all the results with you, you try to interpret the data, right? So, because the observations or numbers might not mean anything, you need to translate that into a form that others understand. You can plot graphs, you can run statistics, you compare with past studies, blah blah blah, and you explain why the results look the way that they do. So you have all the interpretations done in the discussion part, right? Then you do the writing of the research, uh, and then if the results are not very much focused, you have to redo something again. Uh, and sometimes if your results are not sufficient, because when you meet your supervisor, when you submit the paper to a journal, if it is being rejected or if there's major revisions, then you have to do some more work, right? Uh, uh, so it is like it is sometimes I just saw a cartoon recently. It says that it's research is conducting research is just like washing dishes at a restaurant, right? When you think that you are done, there's another plate coming in, right? You keep on washing plates, right? So it's a research also sometimes like that. You have to resample, you have to run the model so many times again and again. You have to rerun the coding. You have to extend if you're doing a questionnaire survey, you have to extend the sampling size, right? So you have to keep on collecting more and more data, right? And the beauty of all this is that for all these steps, you need to conduct literature review, right? Referring to the literature is needed at all these steps, especially now these red sentences here. They are the ones that need a lot of literature to you need to search, you have to find out, you have to read, summarize, and then put the meanings together and then do the review, right? So when you want to develop the topic, when you want to develop the research objective and the methodology, you definitely need to conduct a literature search, find literature, and then do the literature review, right? So if you think that the topic is too broad, you need to read and you have to understand where you can conduct further research, right? Say, for example, one of my students did research on using biochar in sandy soil in several places in Kununagala to see the increase in water holding capacity of the soils, right? Now, if the student comes up with a title, a topic, and a research objective just saying that how does biochar increase the water holding capacity in soil, it's a bit broad, right? You have to say which type of soil that you are looking at, which area that you are looking at, and the timeline that you are looking at. And the student came up with a topic to focus on biochar, adding biochar in sandy soils in Kurunagala district to see the increased water holding capacity in the dry season when irrigation water is not very much available, right? So all these, the narrowing down of the research topic needs a lot of reading. Lots of background information is needed, right? So for that, you need to read a lot, right? Not just one or two papers. You have to read a lot, right? So, and then when you want to set the research objectives and the methods, again, you need to read and understand what others have done. And when you want to find the objective to be clear and the method more or less doable, you need to decide on certain say path to conduct research. Say, for example, whether you are looking at numbers. If you are looking at numbers, whether you are doing experiments, whether you are doing a modeling study, whether you are doing just secondary data analysis from primary data obtained somewhere else. For example, if you have rainfall data collected for the last 100 years, if you are playing around with climate change, you might have say climate data or temperature, say uh, air temperature for the last 200 years collected from somewhere else, right? Or whether your objective is to look at the opinion of the people, whether you are looking at interviews, your focus group interviews, questionnaire surveys, blah blah, or else you might need both numbers as well as qualitative information, right? So for all these, for to be refined, you need to understand basics of what you are going to, what you plan to do, right? And the second red point here, interpretation of results. Uh, Interpretation of research. Now whenever you conduct the research, if you are doing an experiment, you have a certain information. If you are doing a modeling study, you have a set of modeling results. If you are doing a questionnaire survey, if you are doing a focus group discussion, you have qualitative data, right? Now all these are just raw data and information which you need to translate into some understandable form. Others need to understand what you are talking about, right? Because data tables or the qualitative information will not talk. You have to translate the talking, right? You have to put them in a graphical format. You have to draw flow charts. You have to arrange tables, and then you have to interpret, right? Interpretation is the discussion, right? Say, for example, the student that I was talking about, who was doing addition of biochar in cultivation plots, she was looking at soil moisture levels and comparing that with the controls, right? And soil moisture, they were just numbers. She had to put that in a temporal format and also a spatial format, and then compare that with the control and come up with some meaningful discussion, right? So discussion is always why it matters. What does that mean, right? What does that mean and why it matters, right? And then you have to connect your results with the objectives, right? That is also part of your discussion, right? So all these have to be done uh, in the context of the past literature, and also you have to discuss this with compared to what others have done, right? Then the last, you may have to collect more data, carry out more work if your objectives have to be refined, your methods have to be refined, and if your results are not sufficient, and discussion cannot be meaningfully be done, then you have to collect more data, right? Your supervisor, the reviewers of the paper will say, no, this is not enough. This is not convincing, right? You have to do this again to find more results, right? So your research, even whether you are a novice, whether you are a not very experienced researcher or a very experienced researcher, research is always an iterative process, right? You will bounce between literature, and then you have data, you have results, interpretation, discussion, and then again you have to go back to finding literature, right? And it is an iterative process until you get the work done, right? Now, all these couple of slides were taken from the previous lecture. Now, this is very important. When you start your research, you need to get to know your topic, right? You need to pin down a clear topic where you have to stay very broad, right? Say you can't ever say that I'm doing research on renewable energy, for example, right? You have to say what topic within the renewable energy that you are going to do, right? So your topic cannot ever be climate change or renewable energy, right? Or smart agriculture or smart irrigation systems. You have to narrow that down. For example, if it is renewable energy, you can say how effective is rooftop solar on the reduction of peak demand during the daytime in Colombo or something like that, right? Uh, and also you have to understand that the precise topic will help you to search the right literature and design your uh, objectives, right? So you have to identify your topic because without identifying the topic, you can't even start your proper literature survey. And without a proper literature survey or reading, you can't define your objectives. Right? So there's the second bullet point. You have to, once you identify, you don't have to write down your title first. Identify the topic or the area that you want to do research. Then the second step would be a quick study or the overall overview of the topic before you conduct a thorough literature review. Just do a very quick study, overview of the topic, right? Because before focusing on journal databases, don't spend time, hours and hours on these databases first. You can just do a very rapid scan, rapid literature review, literature search. You can just go to some professional websites, society website. You can go to the library, just browse through some theses, previously published ones, or you can go to Wikipedia, you can go to Google Scholar, a Google search, but I never advise you to go through the Wikipedia Google search when you do the literature review, unless otherwise they are absolutely needed, because there are specialized databases for to do scientific literature surveys. But for a quick rapid scan, for an overview of the topic, you can just go do a Google search and see what others have done, and get to know what others have done, right? And while you go through these documents, you make some notes, definitions, look at the methods that others have used, and also please be mindful of the gaps that they are identifying and the conflicts of results, because the gaps that others identify and conflicting results will give you opportunities to define the research need. The third bullet point, identify your interest and strengths. Now, once you have something in mind, a topic, and once you go through some of the literature or the information available already, you will be interested in looking at whether you can do the research that you have in mind or not, right? You need to have the skill. If you want to do a modeling study, you need to know something about mathematical modeling, right? If not, you had to first learn mathematical modeling to do the research, right? So if you are conducting a questionnaire-based survey, you have to make sure that you have enough resources, right? And also, if you are doing lab experiments, you have to make sure that you have access to a lab, you have to access to instruments, and so on, right? And only please make sure that not only your curiosity, that is your interest, will make you a successful researcher. You need to have the strength to do that, and also you need to have the opportunity to do that. You need to have resources to do that, right? So you can't just say that I am good at doing mathematical modeling, and it doesn't mean that you can become a good researcher. That is a strength that you have. You have to translate that strength into a meaningful outcome by conducting the research, right? So it is again an iterative process. Once you go along these three topics, go back again, you refine your topic, do a more literature search, read, and see whether you can adjust, you can be happy of what you have chosen to study, right? So it is a cycle until you have some satisfaction of what you are planning to do, right? So you need to define the topic to ensure that you have a researchable question, and then a brief review of literature would allow you to write your proposal, right? Now, when you define the topic, you have to make sure that, now last time we were talking of the SMART objectives, right? Your the topic should be a doable project, right? How can you make sure that they are doable? We discussed about the SMART goals. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be achievable, they have to be relevant, and time bound, right? SMART, right? So if you are certain that your SMART objectives are satisfied, then you can demonstrate that you understand there's something on that field, and then you can make sure that you identify what is to be done as your research, and if you have a decent knowledge of what others have done, then you can summarize what others have done. You can summarize what you are planning to do. But most of all, you have to identify the research gap at the beginning, and you are ready to write your proposal, because proposal would be your first say obstacle, you need to pass that obstacle to move forward. Proposal writing will be conducted during another session. You have to have a proper title. You have to have a proper introduction with the rationale for doing the research, to say why the topic matters, and then you have to have very clearly put the research question and objectives very clearly. That is the core of the study. Then you have to insert a brief section, a short section on the literature review, the context that you have just drafted by after reading so many papers, together with the methodology, right? And then you have to discuss about the timelines, resources that are needed, and the expected outlines. And if you go through all these minor things, not the steps that you have to follow in developing the research proposal, a proper literature search is needed. You have to find a decent number of papers, go through them, read them, and summarize, and then review the literature, without which the proposal will be a weak one, right? Now, the choice of research method. Now, once the research question is clear, the next task is to choose the right tool to answer it, right? So, the following are the questions to keep in mind as you consider which research methods are the most appropriate for your project, right? For that, you have to first answer these questions. First, what do you need to find out? What do you need to find out? And how will you do it, right? So you have to define the exactly what you need to find out. For example, say if I'm doing say water pollution due to wastewater discharges, then I would be looking at nitrate concentrations, phosphate concentrations, COD, BOD in the water, right? Uh, so, so then I would uh, describe the water pollution due to wastewater discharges, the parameters that define the water pollution, how to detect pollutants, the experimental methods, and how to interpret them, whether I'm going to model the water quality, whether I'm going to do a time series analysis, temporal, I'm going to do a spatial analysis, blah, blah, blah. So you have to first find out uh, what am I going to do? And then if I know that I'm going to look at the water pollution, then I want to, I have to define the sample collection methods, laboratory analyses, and then if I have so much of data, whether I'm going to do a modeling study or I'm going to do a statistical analysis. So then you describe all these once you know what you need to do, right? So you have to exactly know what you need to do, right? And then second important question that you need to ask is there more than one way to get the answer, right? If you have alternative methods to do, for example, simulations or experiments or lab techniques, uh, say qualitative data collection. If you have more than one way to do, then if you settle down with one specific method to conduct your research, then you have to justify why you want to pick that particular method, right? The third, what have others used in similar studies and why, right? What methods have other people used, right? You have to go through the previous papers, scan them, read them, and note down the methods others have used, and also see whether these methods are say method, these the same methods can be used in your study or any modifications are needed, right? And the fourth, how will limitations affect your conclusions, right? Now, when you conduct the research, there can be methods, but there can be interpretations that you make will have limitations, right? Because some experiments, for example, might have, say, detection limits, right? Some parameters might not be able to detect using certain sampling methods, right? So there can be limitations that will affect your final conclusions. Uh, and the assumptions that you make are also very important. Always note down what assumptions have others made in previous studies in doing the same kind of experiments or modeling studies or questionnaire surveys, blah, blah, blah. Then the last, how will the limitations affect your conclusions? If a method can only estimate and if not exactly measure, what is the error of this estimate, whether it is worthwhile doing such studies, right? And if you very closely look at all these five questions that you need to ask, you will understand that to answer all these questions, you need to conduct a proper literature search, find appropriate papers, read them, and get the knowledge out of the previously conducted research, without which you cannot refine your research without answering these five questions. So when your research need and your research question is clear, you need to answer these five very important questions. Then another note about originality, right? Now, what does originality really means, right? Originality is not reinventing the wheel, right? New inventions and discoveries are very rare. You can't always say, Eureka, Eureka, I found this. No, it is very rare, right? These moments are very rare. Don't ever expect. I mean, yeah, some of you can invent certain things. I'm so proud if you can do that, but don't expect everybody to do that, right? Instead, everybody can conduct research, and then without repeating what others have done, you can without just repeating others have done, you can do some incremental work to contribute to the advancement of a particular study. You can look at a new angle by doing, say, applying the same methods, uh, and you can extend that method to do some more tests. Uh, Say, for example, the biochar on sandy soils were used because uh, probably the biochar using biochar as water retention media in clay soils may have been done, right? So I'm not just again looking at clay soils. I'm looking at sandy soils. Right. Also, most of the research might refine the previously found results, right? It will improve precision. It will improve the accuracy of observations and modeling or experimental results. Or sometimes you might develop a new methodology to conduct research, right? And also sometimes you can integrate, combine previously established ideas into a certain knowledge base, and you can interpret it in a new way, right? So interpretation, like that is how these ideas will be propagated, will be developed, right? So the literature that you read are needed to define the originality of what you are doing, right? And also literature research is also needed for critical analysis of your data and information, right? And the first sentence at the top of the slide. Now, at your level, it's important to demonstrate an ability to critically analyze your data and evidence. Right now, collecting numbers or just collecting qualitative information is just only say half done. The study half done, not even half done study. It is still, if you just collect numbers, do experiments, keep on collecting information about the observations, collect data, collect samples, collect information. You conduct qualitative information collection like questionnaire surveys. You run models and you have modeling results. They're all just you are still at the beginning of your research. You always have you have to analyze them. You have to put that into a medium that others understand them, and most of all, you have to answer this: what does that mean, right? What does that mean? So what does that mean is a very important question that you have to answer in your research. That is the part of research. Conducting a study and conducting a research are two different things, right? The research will turn data into knowledge. Research will turn data into knowledge. A study will just generate data, right? The research will turn the data collected in a study into knowledge. That is very important, right? So what do I mean by analysis? There are six things that I have put down here. First, correlate and interpret data, right? Correlate within the data as well as you correlate that with previously found data, right? You can link variables, right? For example, now the water pollution that I was talking to you about, the high nitrate levels will lead to lowering of dissolved oxygen, right? Then you need to have nitrate levels measured, dissolved oxygen levels. You correlate them to see whether there's a relationship between the two data sets, right? So you use biochar as a soil conditioner, water retention capacity increment. You look at the amount of biochar that you use per unit weight of soil, and then you measure the soil moisture after a certain period of time after watering, and you see whether there's a relationship between the two, right? And once you have these data, you compare with previous studies to see whether you can relate your observations to others, right? For that, you need to know what others have done, right? Number two is the same, compare with previous work, right? Comparison of data and results with previous work, right? So you can place your results beside others, earlier studies. There can be agreements, there can be disagreements. Both are okay. Agreements strengthens the confidence of your research study. It will give some reinforcement to what you have done. And also disagreements also demand some explanations. And if your explanations are good enough, that will give some originality for your study, right? Definitely, you have to compare your work with the previous work. And then number three, analysis of uncertainties and errors in data. You have to report errors, right? Because there can be errors. I mean, if you keep on doing the same work again and again, you will not arrive at the same figure. If you measure water quality, the dissolved oxygen will not the same every time you measure, right? If you measure, say rainfall data, if you run models, there can be a convergence, but you will have some kind of an error. And you define that with error bars. You have confidence intervals, you have standard deviations, you have when you have qualitative data, you have survey margins. And these are all about quality of the data that you collect, the strength of the analysis that you do. But don't worry, right? Be transparent, be genuine about the the uncertainty of the data that you are going to interpret, right? And also look at what others have done when interpreting the uncertainty. How have they interpreted the errors, accuracy of data? Number four, reflect on methods. Number four is discussion on why methods procedures should be changed. Now, when you do your experiments, when you do your modeling studies, when you do your field work, when you do your questionnaire service, you will realize that your objectives need some refinement, your methods need some refinement, right? That is the iterative process that I was talking to you about, right? And when you reflect on your own method, when you discuss about your own methods and procedures, if you think that they have to be changed for unforeseen circumstances, for example, always look at what others have done. Because if others have succeeded, then you are certain that you also will be succeed. You will also succeed. But so just to note any unforeseen issues, uh, any errors in the methods, any any shortcomings in the methods that you have applied, right? Always try to look at what others have done. Number five, weighing up factors affecting strategic decisions. So why do you want to weigh strategic factors? Because these strategic factors are something that the strategic decisions are the key factors that affect the research. If you are doing a modeling study, your algorithms or your modeling subroutines need some data for validation, right? So data validation, if you don't have a set of data, uh, the accuracy, everything depends on the accuracy of data or the completeness of data that you have for data validation. If you want to do a sensitivity analysis, the type of information data that you use is critical. If you are doing a questionnaire survey, that the information that the third party provides you with is very important. If they don't give you proper information, then you are stuck. Your quality of research will be affected, right? So always try to look at what others have done, and always try to gather information from previously published data, because the previously published studies are already concluded and they have been successful in concluding those studies, right? You can rely on the previous studies if you have any uncertainties of your strategic data collection or information collection. And the last one is critical comparison of information from extensive range of literature sources, right? You need to synthesize diverse sources of literature, wide range. You have databases, you have published data within your institution. Your friends might also, your supervisor might provide you with past literature, information, data. So whenever you have a wide range of literature, data, information, it's not just two, three papers that you have. You have a whole pile of papers that relates to your hypothesis, that relates to your aim and objectives, that relates to your methods that you want to adopt, and therefore you have to look at all these, the contrasting weaves, weaves that are parallel to what you are doing, uh, and all these papers that would reinforce your ideas, would support your ideas, and which will help you to conduct the research, right? That will sharpen your research, right? And all these to carry out these critical analyses, you need literature. You need to refer to literature. You need to find them, search them, read them, summarize, and review them. Without reviewing, you will not arrive at any of these. For arriving at, say, to successfully arrive at all these analyses, conduct these analyses, you need to do proper literature reviews, right? Then the research question. What is the research question is all about? The research question, you have to, this will refine your question and try and answer the certain questions, right? To arrive at a focused, workable question, and to run through the ideas that you have in mind. There are one, two, three, four. Yeah, you have to go through these five prompts, jot down the answers, write down the answers, and see whether you are ready to go with your research. Yeah, somebody's asking about a systematic review. Uh, Yeah, I will give you, because I have included something, slides on systematic review, but I have taken that out. Probably in a different lecture, I will give you a systematic, because systematic review takes a bit of time to explain. I will the person who asked this, this time I might not have time to answer this, but I will try to find some time for a systematic review. It needs a little time to explain. I had some slides in this presentation, but I removed them. And systematic reviews are for experienced researchers, right? Don't these systematic reviews, you need a lot of literature search, reading, and do a systematic review. I'll come back to that at a different at a different lecture. Uh, Now you have to give answers for these five, right? Uh, Now, whenever you are ready to go ahead with your research work, you have to answer these. What topic have you chosen, and what interests you about, right? So I mean, you have the motivation, right? Always ask why, how the motivation keeps you engaged. So you have to be very explicit, right? So you have to say, I'm keen on doing this research because, right? So you have to answer this, without which you have to describe your motivation, right? Don't ever say that I want to complete the thesis for my final year research project, right? But go away from such explicit answers, right? Research have to be conducted for not for the sake of conducting research. It is for the sake of your interest, right? And then try to answer the second question. You draft? Can you write a working title, right? Now, if you can write a working title, then at least you know what you are planning to do, right? And then third, are you focusing on any method, process, design, practice, model, or theory? You have to look at this very carefully, whether you are doing any field measurements, whether you are doing modeling studies, or it's a modeling field measurements plus modeling, whether you are collecting field samples and doing laboratory studies or just laboratory studies, whether you are doing questionnaire-based surveys, whether you are doing statistical analysis, right? Number five, have you specified the location, geographical area to look at what? Yeah, you have to answer that, right? How have you pinned down a location or a data set? The what, where, right? A location, that's also important, right? And then the last question, what aspect would you like to research further, right? Identify the gap, for instance, right? This is the identification of the gap, right? And once these five pieces are clear, once the answers for these five are clear, you can combine them into one sentence. This sentence will be your research question, right? So this sentence becomes the core, the heart of your proposal, and it will be the statement that will attract the interest of the supervisor. If you are planning to submit a thesis, the interest of the evaluators. If you are planning to submit a research paper, it will attract the attention of the editor and the reviewers, right? So the if you want to formulate the research question, you have to answer these five explicitly and put them together. It can be a short paragraph. It doesn't have to be one sentence, right? So to do all this, you need a proper literature search, literature review to be done, right? And then uh, Okay, this is where we stop. And now this is a very long slide, but I will not go into details of this. We have already discussed this during the previous lecture. Now, I would say that these are some of the qualities of a good research question. I would change this title to qualities of a good research title. So qualities of a good research question. I would say a very good research question should have all these qualities, right? A good research question should be clear and understandable, right? If you can't explain your question to a class, to your friend, your supervisor, in a very short discussion, in a sentence or two, then you need it defining and you need some answer. And your research question also should be capable of development into research design, which can drive a research design, right? The wording, whatever that you should, whatever that you write should hint at the kind of data that you collect, kind of information that you want to manipulate with measurements, interviews, simulations, blah, 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 right? So you need to say capable of development them into a research design, right? Third, it should be connect with the established theories. You have to anchor your ideas with existing theories and evidence, right? For that, you need to conduct a literature review. You have to connect what you are doing with what others have done in the past. That is sometimes referred to as anchoring, right? You have to anchor what you are planning to do, your ideas in the existing theory and evidence. Then the number four should be linked with each other. Now, if you have more than one question, if you have more than one objective, they have to be interlinked, right? You have to do that intentionally. They have to be linked intentionally. If you have some sub questions, they should be built into one coherent research question, one argument, right? Don't go here and there in different directions. It would not contribute to one objective. Number five, the research question should have potential for contribution to knowledge, however small. Add something, right? However small, add something to existing knowledge. Even a narrow case study, even some kind of a modeling simulation can reveal, can contribute how say to the existing knowledge. Look at that the contribution to the existing knowledge, and highlight that as the novelty, originality of your study, right? And then the one before the last the research question should be neither too large nor too small. It has to be right sized. If you are an undergraduate student, you can't have groundbreaking research. If you can do that is good, but you don't have to aim at such heights unless otherwise your supervisor wants you to do, right? But if you are doing a PhD, yes, you have to. Your research should be original. You have to publish your papers in original high quality journals. Uh, so for that, you can't be too broad. You can't be vague, right? Because for undergraduate students, you are doing a research together with so many other modules during semester 7 and 8. But for a full-time master student or a full-time PhD student, you are doing full-time research. You have all the time to conduct research. Don't compare your research with where the research conducted by an undergraduate student, right? So too narrow means no contribution, no meaningful contribution, right? So you always try the middle path, the middle ground, and then move forward, right? And last one, the research question should be reasonable considering the amount of time you have to complete your study. In most cases, time would be the most precious resource, the limiting resource that any researcher would have, whether you are doing a degree, whether you are conducting research to for a industry related project, time is the essence, right? Always because budgets are always you can add on to the budgets, but time extensions are nearly impossible, right? So you have deadlines. Deadlines have to be considered when you set the research question. The research question have to then therefore has to be very feasible within your time frame. And also you have to consider resources also, your access to resources, budgets, laboratory access, your computational capabilities of your lab, etc., etc. But time, deadlines are the most important things, right? So you have to think of the setting up the research question. If you go through all these, you will understand that you might need a proper literature review to conduct all these research. So, sorry, all these steps to conclude all these steps, right? And then to set the objectives again, the 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 objectives have to be set by following these steps. First, you have to step towards a required goal. You have to define the goal of your study. Then show how you will achieve the aim. Third, they must be highly focused and feasible. The objectives should address the immediate project outcomes, and they make accurate use of concepts. Objectives must be sensible and precisely described, and objectives should read as an individual statement. But although you have sub-objectives, if you put all these together, you should be able to make one sentence out of all the objectives, right? So for, your refining of the objective also need understanding of the previous uh, defined literature. Now, if you want to craft an effective title, uh, the title is the first thing, and very often that is what the readers, your supervisor will look at first. It will be the first that the readers will look at when you publish a paper. It will be the first thing that an evaluator of your thesis would look at when you submit your thesis, right? So the title should exactly say what you have studied, right? And for you have four things to consider when you put your title good. You have to look at the most important words at the beginning, lead with the key terms, and avoid ambiguous or vague language. Third, you're breaking up your title up to into a title and subtitle if possible, and then you can embed searchable keywords somewhere else, right? I have discussed this before. And now we will come on to the literature review part. What is literature? How can we define a literature review? Now, the previous slides I gave you as the introduction, because all the steps that I have discussed up to now needs a lot of literature. You need to read them, understand them, summarize them, and then do something called a review, right? So what is a literature review? A literature review is the part of the paper where there is extensive reference to related research in your field. Extensive reference. A literature review is not just a handful of citations or just a handful of papers. It is a mapping of all relevant, credible work in your field, right? So extensive reference. It is not just a handful of citations. That please remember that, right? So I think some of the students, you always think that if you find 3 or 4 papers and you think that you have all the knowledge at hand. No, you have to have extensive reference. You have to do an extensive reference into your research field, right? So extensive reference is very important here. And then the second, you have to make connections. Once you read, you have to make connections. You don't just go on reading, summarizing, and copying them and cutting and pasting it. You have to make connections. You have to make connections. So once you have the literature read, you have the literature review is where your connections are made between the sources of what you read and your position, and you have to position yourself with others. Right now, if I go back to this again, literature review is an extensive reference of related literature. It is where connections are made. You don't list resources one after another. You're just not summarizing. You compare, you contrast, and then you describe, you discuss the patterns, the agreements, the gaps, etc., in your own terms. To do that, the connections are made between the sources of text that you have read, that you have drawn on, and where you position yourself and your own work amongst these. And so this is a very important sentence here. This is all about the literature review. It's not just reading. It's not just summarizing. It's not just putting everything in writing. You have to compare, contrast, describe, discuss among them to show patterns, agreements, gaps, etc., right? So positioning yourself is showing what the results that you take, the observations that you make. You mark the spot where your project stands, what you will add to the existing knowledge, or whether you agree with the existing knowledge, or whether you disagree with the existing knowledge, or whether you are reinforcing the existing knowledge, or you have found a new knowledge, whatever they are, you have to position your work within the others. That is all about literature review. So literature review is not just a summary of sources. It's not just a summary. If I show you, say, 4 out of 5 theses that I get to go through, literature, now even though the second part, the usually in a thesis, the second chapter is on literature review, they're all just summaries, right? You just cut them. Even they are not summaries, even they are just repetition of what others have done. Just copying and pasting what others have done. Don't ever think that the literature review is just a summary of sources, right? You need to even if you paraphrase each article one after the other, right? It is a descriptive essay. It's a description, right? If you read and if you just interpret, if you don't interpret, if you just say the same thing in other words, it is paraphrasing. We call that paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is not reviewing, right? Uh, it's not a summary of sources, uh, and it is also not a group of broad unrelated sources. You can't grab everything and put them into one bag and say that this is the literature review, right? So every paper you include must serve a clear thematic link to your question, right? So they have to be related sources. They should not be broad. They have to be focused, related sources that you put things together. And the third, the literature review is not a compilation of everything that have been written, right? Now, that's what most of the students think. If they find papers, they just keep on copying and pasting parts, right? And don't ever think that copying and pasting would and paraphrasing would make a review. No, a good review is not a compilation of everything. It's not a complete work compilation of others. Select the most relevant, deep study, the relevant studies uh, based on quality and whether it's related or not, right? So you have to look at quality, you have to look at the relevance, and you have to look at the the final outcome of the study as well, right? And lastly, the literature review is not just a criticism or comparison. Sometimes these criticisms or critiques And comparisons, yes, they are good. They are much better than just summarizing them. But you have to, when you find some criticisms, if you have criticisms, then you have to say what next. If you compare, then you have to say why, what you can make out of the comparison. You have to interpret them, right? Comparison is not just enough. Criticism is not just enough. You have to go a little beyond that synthesis. You can show patterns, you can show trends, you can find gaps, and whenever you do a critique, then you can say why there can be disagreements and how can it be resolved. If you compare two things, you can say which is higher, which is smaller, why it is higher. So this why is very important. Why question is very important, right? Why, what, how, where. All these are very important, without which the summaries that you take from literature would not become a review. To become a review, you should avoid all these, right? So literature review is therefore the question, the first one, it is an integrated analysis. It's not just a summary, right? You put everything together, all the findings together from multiple studies into one coherent story, one coherent writing that answers so many questions. Why, what, when, where, how, all these put together. And when you describe all these, it becomes a review, right? The second bullet point there. And the second, now that this direct relevance is also very important here. Directly relevant sources are the ones that you need to put together, right? So every paper that you discuss must add something, shed light onto a specific topic. It has to give some interpretation to what you are planning to do, right? And it has to provide you with a potential citation in your write-up, right? Uh, if you can use these the name of the authors as who have contributed to the previous findings, uh, then you are ready to include that as a relevant source, right? So you have to look at the whether the sources are relevant or not. Then the second bullet point, literature review represents the literature that provides background information on your topic and shows a correspondence between those writings and your research question, right? So the correspondence between what others have written and what you want to write or what you are writing is very important. Explain how each theme, trend, or a gap or the results identify leads that logically leads to an explanation, a discussion to the question that you are looking at. All these are good. And now these literature reviews are possible as two uh, uh, formats. Two possible formats are available. One is a standalone work. For example, the literature review can be included in a thesis as a separate chapter. Uh, uh, but you can also have the literature review in the introduction, right? But in most cases, the introduction and the literature review will definitely have bulk of the literature review that you conduct. And also, your methodology will also have a part of the literature if you refer the methods to previously conducted research. And also, again, in the discussion, you will have lots of literature cited when you want to discuss, when you want to critique, when you want to review the previous literature. So literature review will definitely survey scholarly sources. It will begin by searching peer-reviewed articles. Uh, and these articles are supposed to be authoritative or the previously published papers in that particular field. And the literature review will always provide an overview. You need to condense. You have to summarize what the current knowledge. You need some definitions, key findings, methodologies defined, etc., etc., or the theories defined. So, on the period, the literature will provide you with the overview of the current knowledge. The third, it will also point out gaps in existing literature. That is where it gives you a chance to look at the research need, highlighting where evidence is not available, or the evidence would point out to a gap, a conflict, or something missing. So these might give you an idea of the research gap for your own study. And lastly, the literature review will appear as part of an article or a dissertation on its own, as discussed before. So why is a literature review important? It explains the background of the research topic. It gives readers the historical and conceptual context so that they know where your study fits in. The second demonstrates significance, demonstrate why a topic is significant to a subject area, right? Whether it's significant academically or socially or economically, or as a research, how important it is. And literature, your own literature review will discover relationships. It will reveal how different studies agree, disagree, diverge, converge, reinforce, conflict, or mutually support each other, how important they are, comparisons to be made, blah, blah, blah. So the literature review will give you chances to do that. Number 4, a literature review will also identify major themes. It will also identify gaps, concepts, right? I'm sorry, this fourth one. And the last one, the literature review will discuss further research questions. This is where you put in the recommendations of your thesis or the paper, even to find out to interpret to your results, the discussion you need to conduct a literature review, and then to come up with conclusions. And then most of all, if you want to recommend certain future studies, again, you need to know what others have done. You know what you have you have been all these days, and you have to logically derive, discuss the next steps, right? You can tell the readers the questions your project has already tackled and what next, right? So these 6 functions your research is likely to come up with. Uh, solid literature review will keep the whole structure standing, and it will give you a very strong basis for defending your research, right? So the purpose of the literature review is fourfold. It will demonstrate familiarity with the topic. It will show the readers that you know the key findings of previous research, previous methods, and you have formulated your method based on standard or acceptable methodologies. And then you have developed a theoretical framework and methodology using previous work with justifications. You know the concepts, what others have been doing, and the methods that you have chosen is standard methods. Uh, for example, if early methods model heat transfer with the finite element models, if they have done water quality analysis using Mike 11 model. Right? So if others have done, then you can always say that, okay, I can use finite element analysis to model heat transfer, right? I can If I want to study pollution dispersion, I can use Mike 11 and then do the study, right? So developing a theoretical framework and methodology, if you conduct your proper literature review, it will give you a very strong position. And then when you want to position your approach in relation to other researchers, when you want to clarify where your work stands among others, your way of thinking, if they align with others, if they extend what others have said, and also if your study challenge what others have done, that is very good outcome of research, right? To do that, you need a proper literature review to be conducted. Lastly, you need to identify the gap and show the fit, right? You need to pinpoint what is missing. That is the research question, the gap. You have to contest that, and then you have to conduct and state explicitly, very strongly, how your research has filled that particular missing gap, right? So the link between the gap and the project that you have done will convince others, the reviewers of your paper, the supervisor of your research. They will be convinced that you have contributed to advancement of knowledge, right? So you have to prove that you have contributed to advancement of knowledge by way of conducting a proper literature search, read them carefully, summarize them, and then find connections and position your work among these connections, and then describe the novelty of your research. So to give you a summary of what we have done so far, to consolidate the main slides that we had, the literature review will survey sources. It will systematically locate and record the previously published work done by others, and it will connect them with what you are doing, what you have already done as your research. And the second bullet point, the literature review provides an overview of current knowledge, analyzing and evaluating relevant studies, as we discussed before, and it points out gaps in the existing research, seeks to point out what is not yet known, often provides justification of your research, and it appears as part of your article, dissertation, proposal, right? To ensure that you have a thorough understanding of the existing research in your area before embarking on your own, and to provide general evaluation of the state of research on a topic of your own choice. So the last point is important to understand. So to give you a summary, now where does research where does the literature review is embedded in the research process? This is the entire research process, starting with choosing a topic, constructing aims or hypotheses, selecting methods, collecting data, analysis of data, interpreting and drawing conclusions. Where do you do the literature review? Where do you do the literature search, reading, summarizing, and doing the review? Literature is not a one-time checkpoint, I would say. It guides you at every stage of this research process, right? So referring to literature is needed at all levels, right? So always think on the published records as the both the maps and the compass, right? You have the compass, that is the access to the databases. Map would be the database itself. Use the compass to find the way, use the keywords to find the appropriate literature, read them, and it will help you to start in the right place, stay, and you need to move into practical search strategies now. So conducting a literature review has 4 parts, right? Conducting a literature, I have divided this into 5 steps. The first step is search for relevant literature. you can search now. That is what you have done yesterday, right? You have listened to Professor Kauma, how to use discipline-specific databases, IEEE, for example, Explore, Scopus, Science Direct, JSTOR, blah blah blah. You have so many databases, and you combine them with Boolean operators that we discussed the other day. And then second, you evaluate and select sources. Once you have so many literature downloaded, you have to evaluate. You can't read hundreds of papers. You have to evaluate them. Yes, Manjula has. Is there any criteria to determine it's enough or not relating to lit? When do we stop lit? That's why I said literature review. I don't think you can stop it at any time. That's what I gave you the previous slide. Uh, Now here, now it's now you need a literature review from the day one until you finish your research, right? And again, when you start the next part of the research, again you have to do the literature review again. There's no end to conducting research, right? And also as say researchers, you keep on reading. You do the search, reading, and the write up, because you need to refine what you are doing day after day, right? And also the number of papers. No, I can't say whether it's 10 is enough, 100 is enough, or even more than 100, right? Now, the previously there was a question on systematic research. For systematic research, you might be looking at thousands of papers rather than just 10, 20, 50, right? So it depends on the work that you are doing. It depends on the topic that you are doing. It depends on the focus, for the information that you are looking for in the literature, right? And Chatur is asking, dear, so what is the difference between research and thesis or synopsis? I think research is a process. Thesis or synopsis is what you put when you put the process into writing, then you define the thesis or the synopsis. Synopsis is part of the thesis anyway. Research is a process. Thesis and synopsis both are kind of when you put them your research into a piece of writing. It can be, if it is a long write-up, you can call it a thesis. If it is in a summary form, you can call it a synopsis. But definitely, research should be something related to a process. Synopsis is mostly a summary form, a shortened version of a thesis, for example. And again, going back to the discussion that we had, evaluating the sources, and now, when you have so many so many papers collected, you can't be reading all these papers, right? You have to evaluate and select the sources, right? You have to check each paper's credibility, the journal ranking, the citations, and the standing of the authors, and also definitely the relevance of the content to what you are doing, right? And also, some papers, even though the title says that the title is very related to you, the content might be related to you, but sometimes you might find that the amount of work that they have done, the rigor of the work, the depth of the work, the clarity of methods, for example, the adequacy of sampling sizes, or the robustness of the modeling frameworks that they have used. If you think that they are not good enough, you can just drop them. right? Even though the title is very relevant to you, always evaluate the sources first before summarizing them, right? Always keep only the studies that will genuinely contribute to your study, help you to conduct your study, right? Or else just drop them. Right. Number three, you need to identify themes, conclusions, debates, and gaps. Always look at these things: themes, conclusions, debates, and gaps. While reading, you have to summarize the findings, the methods that they have used, the key results, the points of disagreements, blah blah blah. And I will tell you. I will describe all these five later. I will tell you a method to look to summarize these. The number four, then you outline your structure and then write the literature review. Right. So these are the four that we will go one by one. Uh, the step one, search for relevant literature. Ladies and gentlemen, can we take a short break and come back in about 10 minutes? Yes or no?
Yeah, sure, Professor.
Yes. Okay. Uh, please come back at 10:42. Uh, Hope you are back. So we'll continue with the presentation. Now, this is the first step. Now we were talking about 4 steps, sorry, 5 steps in conducting the literature review. Uh, Search for relevant literature, evaluate selected sources, identify themes, conclusions, debates, and gaps, and then outline the structure and writing. The first step is search for relevant literature. I think you have conducted much of the information contained in here. I will not discuss much about these ones. I will just very briefly give you these ones, right? Whenever you want to choose the topic, because without a topic you can't search, because you have to first identify the topics, your interest, your context, you refine what you want to do. You have to say. Now, this particular question, this is a checklist provided by that I took from a previous paper by this checklist of questions to ask yourself when deciding on a topic, right? So you answer all these 10 questions if you want to, before you define your topic, and your answers. Now, these are not just a test that we do, but it's just a checklist, right? If you are ready to answer all these, then you are ready with your topic, right? So without a topic, you can't be going around looking for relevant literature, right? Because most of the difficult things while considering the literature review is to develop the topic and then the research question. But even before you decide on the research topic and the question, you have to do the literature review. Your supervisor may decide on a topic for you, but still you have to find out the research question. You have to define the objectives. So you may, or you may not be able to narrow it down right away, but looking at the literature, reading will give you chances to think carefully, right? And also, whenever you decide on your topic, it will identify you to identify the gaps in the literature while reading, right? And for this, the research topic that we have discussed earlier. Now, try to answer these questions. How does the problem affect the real world? Has it been an issue for a long time, or it is a newly discovered problem? What research has already been done? Have any solutions been proposed? What are the current debates about the problem? If you can answer these things, I think you are little by little you are approaching your topic, and then you are focusing on something that you want to do in the future, right? Then the step 2 would be to specifically look at the research question, the specificity and the relevance. Again, there are 4 questions to answer. What specific characteristics, themes, or aspects will you focus on? Pinpoint on your focus. State the variables if you are studying a mathematical model, the theme, or the field if you are doing any field work. Then the second, what aspects will you not be able to tackle? You have to set boundaries, right? There are things that you can do, there are things you cannot do. It all depends on the smart objectives that you have and the resources that you have, and including the timeline, right? And then the fourth one, when you define the specificity and relevance, you have to highlight the consequences. What will be the consequences if the problem is not resolved? Right. Now, if you start with the research problem, you set the objectives, and if you think that if you cannot solve the problem that you have defined, what will happen? Whether you cannot do your thesis, whether you have some ways out, and if it is too risky, if you are not successful in getting the results, and if your effort is futile, if then you have to think twice, right? Because you cannot start research with a lot of risks. at hand when you have a time constraint, when you have a resource constraint. And the last, you need to main the beneficiaries. And if it benefits large, then the relevance of your the research would be large. And then for literature review, developing a clearly defined focus is also needed. That will be your first step, right? So you have to define your research question or problem as we discussed before. So you have to remember it is not a collection of loosely related studies in the field, but instead represents background and research developments, right? They have to be interpreted and analyzed in a way that others can understand, right? So defining a research problem and question, it has to be manageable, comprehensible, coherent, and logical. Now, this sometimes is referred to as the Goldilocks test. The question should be manageable, comprehensible, coherent, and logical, right? Now, this narrowing down is very simple to explain. For example, an example is given here. If somebody proposes a research on impacts of water quality on human health, you will see that this is very broad. It's very broad, and it's not manageable. It's not comprehensible. Now, because water quality has different meanings, right? Human health has different aspects, right? So this example is something that you need to think carefully. Impacts of water quality on human health. By looking at it, you feel that it's too broad. How to put that into a focus, right? Now, water quality, if you're looking at certain parameters, if you are looking at several aspects of water quality due to wastewater, water quality, for example, based on parameters, heavy metals, for example, uh, impacts of heavy metals on human health might be a better way to express your research topic than water quality, right? Human health also has different aspects. If you say uh, uh, impacts of heavy metals on, say, the CKD, the kidney disease, right? So, if not, how say the impacts of arsenic on human health, or impacts of arsenic on the development of babies, something like that, right? So that's how you have to make sure that the research question is not broad, right? So you have to always discuss your topic with your supervisors, your seniors, fellow researchers, and try to focus on one doable project, right? And once you identify, once you decide on the topic, then try to identify the keywords to conduct the literature survey, right? So the four key points down here is important. You first, once you have the topic decided, uh, uh, you have to keep these in mind. You have to brainstorm primary terms, which we refer to as keywords, right? Start with some keywords, right? So when you talk of water quality and human health, if you are looking at heavy metals is a keyword, not water quality. Under heavy metals, you can say lead, you can have arsenic, you can have chromium. And human health is a very broad term. It's not a keyword, but if you say kidney diseases, say, or you can say cancer, whatever they are, the gastroid, say, whatever the human health implications that you take can be considered as keywords, right? So always when you have the broad idea of plan, what the area that you are planning to focus on, brainstorm concepts and keywords, and then try to come up with some keywords, right? And then second, ask yourself if these concepts are too broad or too narrow. Check the scope. If it is too broad, try to focus it more closely, right? Say the solar energy example that I gave you, the rooftop solar energy that I gave you before. Say, for example, rooftop solar on single-story houses in Colombo, right? So rather than saying just a rooftop solar system, so you just narrow that down to an area, type of buildings, or even say 5 kilowatt rooftop PV systems. So you narrow that down to again a project that is feasible, right? And number three, you have to then write down a list of related terms or synonyms. Once you have the theme area for your research, and when you have the concepts defined, the keywords defined, write them down, right? Then you can develop a concept map like the one that we started, and look at the connections, and you can have these concept maps developed with so many things. We have already discussed it, and the keywords, and then you know that having Boolean connectors together would give you a defined search. When you have the search volume will be less when you have keywords put together, right? You can have databases like Science Direct, Scopus, JSTOR, or specialized the databases. You can always look for uh, Boolean operators to make sure that keywords are put together so that the search volumes are less. You can use and or not, or you can have a truncation, or you can have quotations for specific matches. I think you may have gone through this yesterday, and you can
Professor
have
Manikunda, yesterday that was not gone through. Actually, uh, if you can explain it, that would be better.
මේ කතා කරන්නේ නැද්ද?
No, not that. But I think if you go back to several slides back.
All right. So when you
Not
have
much clear.
when you have keywords defined the way that you want to have it, say some these are some ways of representing them. You can have these concept maps. You can have these.
Yeah, can you go a little bit
The connectors broken, the phrases broken down into some ideas, right? And for example, the climate change, you have divided that in human activities. Human activities are divided into population increase, fossil fuels, natural processes, and then evidence of climate change. You have three keywords here. Climate change, the management are defined again by some other keywords, right? And this is another example, complicated example. The one who was doing research on this landslide susceptibility and hazard zonation approaches. So he has broken that down into this is not the approach, but it very closely goes with the methodology. But it identifies certain parts of the research approach, and they also can be regarded as keywords, right? And you have to combine keywords, because if you are using a single keyword, the search volume would be very high. But if you, for example, insurance, you have thousands of papers. If you say you go to Science Direct, and if you just type in insurance, you have maybe 50,000 papers. But if you say health insurance, it will come down to about 5,000. If you say health insurance for professional athletes, it will be just 50, 100 papers, right? So if you are focusing on health insurance for professional athletes, you have to come up with a long tail keywords, very specific keywords. But if you have different keywords, what you can do is you can use Boolean operators and use this for your keyword search, and would give you say, for example, if you have landslides and rainfall, it will look at landslides and rainfall, right? And then it will search for both the keywords. And if both the keywords are included in the paper, it will pop up with the results. If you say O, you have two keywords, landslides or rainfall. So this is a broader way of looking at rather than using and, because if either this or that, right? Not exclude the certain papers, say slope stability, not rainfall. And it will the search engine will look at slope stability included in the papers, but it will exclude all the papers which refers to rainfall, right? So when you have a truncation, it gives the variations of different terminology, phrases, and words. You can have part of the word, part of a phrase, and yes, you can have a truncation, a star, and it will provide search for all the truncated phrases. When you have quotations at the beginning and at the end of the phrase, it will look for exactly matching phrases, right? You have the most popular databases. There are two databases, JSTOR, Elsevier, Science Direct, and JSTOR. And Scopus is kind of it's not a database, but it has uh, uh, it's kind of a directory of the papers published by each journals and also by each authors. Google Scholar is a list of papers published by individual researchers, grouped according to the researcher. But the Google Scholar, the beauty of Google Scholar and Scopus is that they have a large collection of papers and it gives the link to those papers. But Science Direct and JSTOR, they are databases. You can they are searchable databases, but you have to subscribe for Science Direct and JSTOR. And Scopus and Google, they don't provide full text. They are not downloaded, but they will give you links to these journals, right? Uh, and examples for using these keywords, you can use landslide, right? It is a very broad keyword because the landslide will give you uh, tens of thousands of papers. But if you use landslide or slope failure, the slope failure, I have two words here. Therefore, I use these inverted commas here to make sure that slope failure is interpreted as one phrase. So the search engine will look for either landslide or slope failure. Whenever you have landslide and slope failure, it will look for both in one paper, right? Now, if you have landslide and slope failure and rainfall, uh, it will look for all these three in the same paper, right? So this will give you a very focused search. If you are looking for papers published on landslide, slope failure, rainfall, all put together, this the fourth will give you a very refined search outcome. The last one before the last, landslide and slope failure and rainfall and shear strength. You have four key words put together. This is more focus than the fourth one. The last one, landslide, slope failure, shear strength, not rainfall. It will exclude rainfall, and this is a different set of papers than the fifth one. So you can have, always use these Boolean operators to refine the search, and then you will come up with very focused searches. Always try to avoid uh, uh, predatory journals. I have gone through these slides during the previous so, discussion. So we will go to step 2 right away. Step 2 is evaluate and select sources. You have to always evaluate the sources and decide which ones to which ones are relevant to your study. Now, when you got a large collection of papers, you have to think which are important, right? Your supervisor, your seniors might tell you how to screen them out, but probably you have to read at least the abstract of these papers to see which papers are important for your study, right? And there are some questions that you can ask when you want to screen the papers, because now always you can keep on collecting papers, search and download the papers, but when it comes to reading, you can't be reading hundreds of papers continuously. So you have to answer these kinds of questions, right? What was the research question of the study? And what were the authors trying to discover? What were the research methodologies? The second bullet point, right? How have they analyzed the literature? What are the samples and variables used? How are the results and what conclusions have they made? Does the research seem to be complete? Could it have been conducted more soundly? What further questions does it raise? Number three, if there are any critiques done, what are the implications? Number five, four, how are the authors reviewed in the field? If the authors are reputed, then I think they have particular strengths, right? So you have to pay attention to that, right? And has this study been cited? Now there are some papers which are cited almost everywhere. Those papers are referred to as pivotal papers. They are very important. You can't miss them. Always refer to them, cite them in your work. They are called pivotal papers, right? And then we go to step three, that is uh, identify themes, conclusions, debates, and gaps. Now you want to start thinking about what your evaluation to the relevant sources, what they reveal, what they tell you, right? You are looking for some trends, some new information from the literature, the gaps, the debates, the methods that they have suggested, right? So this step will help you to work out the structure of your literature review and show how your research will contribute to the existing knowledge gap, right? Now, whenever you read, you have to look for trends in the literature over time. Do certain approaches become more or less popular over time, or what they have reinforced the methods? They have the same method, the same models being used over and over again. If that is the case, these methods are very reliable. Then the key themes, right? What questions or concepts will occur over and over again across the literature. If you see the same theory, same theme, same question over and over again, that is widely studied and also will be interesting, right? And again, always try to highlight debates and agreements. They are the ones that you have to highlight them, because they can be the basis for your research gap, the research need, and the formulation of your research question and the objectives, right? And these the gaps of the research is something very important. And also these pivotal publications, as I told you, always find out the influential authors and also influential theories and studies, right? And if you think, say, studies done on finite element analysis are the ones that needs more focus on. So they can be based on the theories. They are important for you. And if you think that there are several researchers who are very prominent in the area, always look for papers published by them, right? And always try to find the missing gap from the literature, right? Where you can always conduct your research on, right? So same questions that will help you to analyze the research. So these are some of the questions that you need to ask when you read the papers. And if they are important enough, try to make your notes, right? Uh, what was the research question of the study? What were the authors trying to discover? Was the research funded by a source? But if the funded research are sometimes biased, if they are biased, please be careful of the interpretation. What were the research methodologies? Does the research seem to be complete? Could it have been conducted more soundly? What further questions does it raise? How has the study been linked to other studies? These questions have to be found out when you read the papers, right? Now, when you read the literature, first read the abstract again, this for the second time, and if it to see whether the paper is interesting for you. If you can't understand the abstract, not worth going again through the paper. Drop the paper, find something else, right? But it doesn't mean that the paper is not going to work, right? When you read some other papers, you might feel like going back to the paper that you have kept aside, right? Always collect the papers, keep them aside, and you might want to go through the paper again, right? Uh, and this is something important. You have to take notes while reading, because when you keep on reading, you might not have track on what you are reading. You might be reading, say, 10 papers, 20 papers. When you read the 10th paper, you forget what you have read in the first paper, right? There is the human nature, right? You can't keep everything in mind. You may have uh, something in your memory, but you can remember something, but you always think that I've read this somewhere. Where can I get that again? But don't be the on that path. Please always try to summarize the paper whenever you finish reading the paper, so that you can go back again by looking at the Tushan, so please, can you explain peer review paper mean and why? No, peer review papers are now, before the papers are being published, it's like the evaluation of the thesis. The thesis before it is being cleared, it is being evaluated by a couple of evaluators. Similarly, whenever you submit papers for a journal or a conference, there are reviewers. At least two reviewers will go through the paper to see whether the paper is worth publishing, whether there are errors, whether there are discrepancies, whether there are any things that are not appropriate enough, and also to see how the paper can be developed further, right? Uh, so these peer-reviewed papers are uh, the papers are reviewed by peers. Peers are equal people. If I am a researcher, I would like my paper to be reviewed by two of other researchers, two of peer reviews. Peers are people who are at equal level, right? But your theses are not peer reviewed, because you're a student, and the theses are reviewed by evaluators. They are at a higher level. They are being evaluated by the evaluation panel, but papers usually are say refereed or reviewed by fellow researchers, right? So therefore they are called peer reviewed papers. Peer reviewed papers are the ones that are credible enough for you to go through, because they have gone through the process where at least the mistakes, errors, discrepancies may have been rectified. It's always reliable to go through a review peer-reviewed papers. Asanka asks, if I want to test whether another author's design approach can be applied in a different area, is I think it depends on where you are going to do, but always whenever you publish, whenever you write write a paper or a thesis, you have to give credit to the previous author. Right? If you are using, you can copy the same process, you can copy the same methodology, but your outcome, your results, your interpretation should contribute to further advancement of the knowledge. You can use some others design approach. Yes, it's valid, but you should not be stealing others' work. It's not plagiarism. You have to be careful of plagiarism. You have to be careful of any intellectual property rights. If the methodologies are copyrighted or patented, you have to be careful. You need to take permission. Sometimes when papers are published in journal papers, if you are using the information published already, you have to write to the journal and then get clearance. Whenever you are using some others' work, you can cite them. But if you are adopting the same methodology, if you are using the same, if you are using the same data or the methodology, sometimes you have to get the clearance from the authors or the journal, right? But you have to give proper credit to the original author or the paper, right? So. Mm, uh, again, and now you have to read the abstracts and then keep careful notes, right? So now whenever you read the full paper, always at this stage you may have a lot of information to take down, right? Because you can't keep everything in your memory. As you read, you should begin the writing process. Taking notes is very important because you can't remember everything. Because at a later stage, if you want, if you remember reading something, but you can't uh, uh, remember where, right? So always try to write the summaries, keep track of the sources that you read with citations to avoid plagiarism in the future, right? So you can copy down specific quotes and any paraphrase and summarize key points. Uh, and also you have to keep say, records of the source information, the author's name, title of the journal name, publications, page numbers, blah, 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 so that later you will find this very important for you. I always give my students an Excel sheet to complete, to take notes, to give these methods, data analysis, interpretations, summaries of key points, source of information, to record all these, right? Uh, this is the Excel sheet that I give them. Can you all see this Excel sheet?
Yeah, we
Not
can
that
try.
clear.
Not that clear. Okay.
Now it's okay. Fine. Yes.
Right.
Now clear.
No, yeah, this is the Excel sheet that I give them. This is what I want the students to do is to summarize the papers that they read. Right? They have to do it soon after they read the paper. Right? Citation is the name of the paper, the title of the paper, and the full citation where it is published, the page numbers, the name of authors, everything here, right? And then when you read the paper, you have to find out the purpose of conducting that particular study, the rationale, and also the research question that they were focusing on. Just give a brief description on that. What you can do is now you have the snippet tool. You can just crop the section of that paper and paste it here, right? That is what I'm asking. Or else, if you have an editable paper, you just copy and say cut and copy the section here, and then you have to describe the theories that they have discussed. There can be or there cannot be, right? There are papers where they don't describe the theories much, right? If there are, you can describe them here. The research methods, the sampling method, the variables that they are used, all the methodologies can be discussed, put them here. And then the major findings. What are their findings? What have they discussed about? And have they discussed about any limitations, gaps in the discussion, right? So you keep on, you read the second paper, you fill this also. Read the third paper, fill that. So you keep on reading 5, 6 papers. And from time to time, there's a second part of this Excel sheet where now you have read certain things. Now, when you read certain things, you have to. Now, this is where you do the review part. These are just copying. These are just copying, right? And then if when now whenever you read a couple of you can do it once you read the paper, you can right away make notes on how this research is linked to your study, right? And you can make a note on the themes that emerge. When you describe, if you have something new, you can note it here, right? Any similarities or any differences, any debates, anything that they are pointing out as recommendations for future studies. They are very important here because they are the ones that you want to focus on, and any other notes here. And also from time to time, whenever you read 3 or 4 papers here, now you will see the major findings. You can compare them. The limitations you can compare between them. Not all, but the first paper and the third paper may have similarities. You can do the comparison, right? The first paper and the fifth paper might have some conflicting ideas, right? The first paper and the fourth paper might have very similar findings, right? The theories might be the same, right? So you can take those also, the connections, the similarities, the conflicts, any suggestions, any gaps that they have identified. All these you can make note on how the research is linked to other studies or your study. Note themes emerge in the body of literature and miscellaneous notes. So this is how you have to keep notes, right? The left hand side part, this part is for summarizing what you read. This part is for the synthesis, the review. If you can fill this part, definitely that is the literature review. This is the right, the left hand side part is just a literature summary, right? That is not enough. Most of the students, what they do is they just do this part. That is not enough. If you want to write a proper thesis, if you want to publish your journal paper, this part is the most important, and this part is the one that you will be reporting in your research paper, right? So I will give you an example of one of my students. Can you read? Can you see this Excel sheet?
Yes.
Yeah, and this is a partially filled paper sheet filled by one of my students, which she sent me recently. This is the paper. She has her own identification number 16, and this is the reference according to APA guidelines. The name of the authors, the year, the name of the article, the journal, blah blah blah. And the purpose, rationale, and the research question is described here. Probably she has copied. I don't know what she may have copied it from the paper, and the theory and the framework. She has. You can see she has cropped certain parts and pasted them here. And then the research methods. She has described the experiments and so on. And then the major findings and study limitation and gaps. And she has not gone into these details. She has not filled these parts. But later she will. Now she has I think, has just read 2 or 3 papers. The second paper is also the same, right? After reading a couple of papers, so she has, she has taken some implications from this paper for the time being. So this also she has taken from the third paper. She has taken some, right? So the paper number, the summarizing it all together, and the experiments, the results and the interpretation part, and how it is related to what she is doing, right? So this is a summary of what she is doing. So she has been doing it. But for some papers, if she cannot, if she's not interested in the theory part of it, you can just keep them blank, right? You don't have to fill everything. If you're not interested in the theory part, you can just keep it blank, right? So whenever you have this sheet with you, you don't have to go through the papers over and over again, because you have a summary of these papers, whatever the sections which are important for you, right? So this will be you can transfer all these directly to your thesis at some stage. So this part, the right hand side part, you can transfer, definitely you can transfer all these one day to your paper writing, right? So if you can have a good practice, something like this, I think this will be very important for you to organize your work. Because definitely after reading a couple of papers, you will not remember what you have read at the first. Right? From time to time, you will realize that you read something somewhere, but cannot find right? Just wasting your time going over and over again, reading the same papers over and over again for the third time, fourth time, fifth time in vain. So I will share that Excel sheet also with you, if you can use that. And then the step 4, the literature review, then you have to outline your structure. Outline the structure. I'm not going into details of these. You can outline it in different structures, which I will not go through because it takes a bit of time. We'll jump into the 5th part. I will describe the structure also here, uh, uh, which I skipped. Writing the literature review. Now you are with all the summaries in hand. You are ready to start writing up your literature review. Uh, the review should have all these components embedded in the literature review. Where, I mean, the literature review can be in the introduction part, it can be in the methodology, it can be in the discussion, wherever it is, or it can be a separate section in the thesis or the paper. Wherever it is, you have to have these embedded. You need to summarize and synthesize them. You have to organize the review into logical sections, right? And within each section, I mean, it's just the style of writing that you do, right? You have to analyze and interpret what you have observed, and what you have observed not only in your study but also while going through the previous research, because that's how you connect your studies with the previous, without which if there are no connections, uh, your review part is missing, right? Then you have to critically evaluate. This critical evaluation part is very, very important, right? You have to assess the quality of evidence, your whatever you have from the previous literature, and with your methods, your results, your observations, your way of interpretation, them, your conclusions, and also the errors that you make, uncertainties, all these things you have to compare, analyze, critically analyze, and then do the discussion part. That is the most important part, and that is the contribution that you make to the existing knowledge. Just observing things, just the results without interpretation, without evaluation, might not meaningful. Then you have to, the fourth, synthesize different sources. Now that is where you make connections, as we discussed at the very beginning, right? You have to cross-source synthesize, right? The cross-source synthesis is very important because compare your results with others, right? Or else compare what others have done between them, those studies, right? This cross synthesis have two different things. You compare what others have done in the past without comparing your results, but it has to have a relevance to what you are discussing in the thesis or the paper. The second part of synthesis can be your observations with what others have done, right? Your write-up has to be always have to be very well structured paragraphs, right? Start with the topics and sentences that points to a certain argument, and follow this with evidence from your observations, your results, and other sources, and end with the all these paragraphs will have should have a mini conclusion. And very importantly, you have to cite properly every time you use other data, others claims, others viewpoints, others methodologies, and also the citations should be consistent. You have to follow a consistent style. I think there will be a separate lecture on citations and then referencing styles, right? And what to include in the review? Very short discussion. Even though there's lots of text here, you have to go through that and understand. You have to open with a snapshot of where the field stands now. That is the current situation, right? Information necessary to understand the topic of the focus. Then the history. If the history is needed to be repeated, you have to do that. History is not long time back. If you are looking at finite element analysis on structures, maybe concrete structures or something, you have to look at how say if you're looking at the chronology of evolvement of finite element analysis, then you can do so by looking at early analysis, the methods, how they interpret the results, how they have refined the analysis, and so on. Then, if there are methods and standards involved, try to discuss all these, and most of all, always try to questions for further research. When you compose the literature review, you have to use evidence, right? What is use evidence when you make a claim, whether it is a trend or a disagreement or the adoption of methodology from others, or if you are using data from other sources, you have to use evidence. You have to first state the point. You should refer to several sources when making the point. And the literature review, in this sense, is just like any other academic research paper. Your interpretation of the available sources must be backed up by evidence, right? Provide evidence from at least 1-2 peer-reviewed studies to support your claims, your methods, your data, your results, right? And also then explain why this evidence validates your interpretation with comparison to what others have done. And always try to summarize and synthesize what you are doing. Or, if just giving an example for using evidence, what we used last time, right? Now this example will give you how to use evidence, right? Now, for example, now you are reviewing the chronology, the history. Now, in the second paragraph, this is the same example that we took last time. Limit equilibrium methodology, the slope stability analysis. You can see the history of it, right? From 1936 to 1955 to up to 1973, right? And you can see the evidence are provided for all the statements given. These are called the citations, right? So Felonius in 1936 have studied about this. Love and Karafiat in 1960 have done some studies on that, right? So on the right-hand side, uh, these over the last decades, the displacement-based finite element methods became increasingly popular. The first called the strength reduction method is RM. Now for SRM, now the citations are given to validate the point, right? And then a brief description is given and citations are given. These are the ways of giving evidence of what others have done, right? So giving evidence is always good to make a claim, right? Uh, Again, now here there are some examples taken from other sources. The above studies focus on the effect of vehicle loads on slope deformation characteristics, but there are few studies on the effects of vehicle loads on the change of slope stability. Now, these papers might have said that there are few studies, right? On the lower part of the slide, it says it is still possible to find evidence of thermally controlled landslides. Thermally controlled landslides, evidence can be found in Shibasaki, Lombardo, Loesch, right? Those are the evidence that is provided. Whenever you, now all these are literature review, they are not just summarizing what you have read, right? So you put your writing first and then you provide evidence. This is what we call literature review. These are not summarizing, right? And then you have summarize and synthesize the same thing, the same examples that I gave you. It's not just copying and pasting, synthesizing them, right? And then keep your own voice, right? For example, the example that I gave you. Now this is you use the same, you say, for example, now the bottom paragraph on the left, in this context, we propose a typical approach for modeling hard rocks with natural discontinuities. On the top, the main aim of the present study was to conduct a rock stability assessment. Now, you are writing your own write-up. It's not just what cutting and pasting from others, right? So you always try to uh, keep your own voice when writing something in uh, the literature review. You always try to keep open with your point and insert evidence and close with your own interpretation, right? So I will provide some examples for each of these slides when I share the slides with you, which I have not done. Then always try to use caution when paraphrasing. When you are paraphrasing, one thing is that you might misinterpret what others have done, right? So whenever you try to interpret what others have done, you might misinterpret. You can go wrong. Therefore, you have to be very careful. But at the same time, you can't be copying and pasting what others have done, which is plagiarism, copying, right? Therefore, you have to be careful. You have to make sure that what you paraphrase, what you rewrite is accurate. And always try to give credit to what others have said. Always provide citations, right? And always check for plagiarism before submitting your thesis, or because knowingly or unknowingly, you might be committing plagiarism, right? And always, it is good when you compose your literature, you have to describe what happened. There are three levels: the descriptive reporting, the interpretive reporting, or the critical element, or responding with critique. Now, the descriptive reporting is you just describe what happened. You describe what the authors have discussed, what they have found, what they have, and what account of the topic that they have said. Now, that is the left part of the Excel sheet that I gave you. You just copy from the others and you say, this is what others have done. This is the methodology. This is what they have found. Their results are here. These are the ones that they have found out as gaps, right? And then the second part would be now if the second method of the providing a discussion would be interpretive, right? So just not by having a description, you try to ask and answer questions. You analyze, explain, and interpret the information, results, and observations, and you try to synthesize information. That is the right-hand side of the Excel sheet that I gave you, right? You try to explain, you try to describe, you try to compare. But the third part would be when you combine 1 and 2, and if you see more than the description and the interpretation, if you can highlight gaps, limitations, inconsistencies, inaccuracies, and how to make sure that the methods, the results, the descriptions, the whatever that the findings are in the research can be made more valuable. If there are errors, how can you rectify the errors? And if there are errors, inconsistencies, you have to point out them, right? So this is the critique. You criticize, but your criticism is has always to be constructive in the research world. You have to say, you have to criticize, you have to find out the faults, errors, inconsistencies, and then say how it can be uh, uh, resolved, right? So it is always good to have description, moving, and then move to interpretation, and then go for critiquing, right? So so always try to start with description, then interpret, and then critique, right? So always if you read the literature and if you can describe them, yeah, you can have 1 star. If you move from the descriptions to interpretation, you have 2 stars. But if you combine 1 and 2, and if you respond with critiques, yes, you have all the 3 stars with you, right? Let us get some examples. Descriptive. Now here, now this is a description that you have taken. Now if you just an illustration here, I'm not going to details here. Now, if you go through this, this will give you descriptive reporting, right? Now you say you if you go through this, you will always find that Oliver Evans proposed, they produced, and they pumped. While there is no record that he built the work, his idea probably influenced. The latter proposed. Uh, Perkins did so with. So this is just reporting what others have done, right? So it's a chronological flow with time. The paragraph moves from ancient, say earlier stages to the present stages, and it's a very good descriptive. There's no interpretation as such, right? Just have a look at this example and see. And then if you go to the next example here, now this is from descriptive to interpretive, right? Now these 3 authors validated CFD results against wind tunnel tests and found their results were in agreement with the. Now this is the second part of the sentence is interpreting what they have said, right? Uh, no statistical comparison of results is provided, but the graphical representation is included. Again, they're trying to describe it, right? So limitations are called out, right? This signals a methodological gap. That is a critique. It prepares you to explain certain things because of this, this cannot be interpreted, but it doesn't go further. So this is just interpreting. If it says the implications of these no statistical comparison, then it is going for a step further critiquing. But these authors have not done the critiquing. They have interpreted that and they have stopped it there. Downstream results showed a degree of error which the authors attributed to blah, blah, blah. A CFD model was then generated. Now, this is a description. was generated, but the second part with a clearly defined set of parameters. Results showed that there was a, no, this is the description, right? Not only the observations, they try to describe what they have said. The last part of it, these results were based on 0.5 second velocity values. So they're first describing what the others have observed and trying to interpret them in a meaningful manner, right? This Cape Island turbulence model links to this CFD debate. The paragraph is not only just what they have observed, the implications are also articulated, described, right? So this is a very clear example of how the descriptions can be interpreted the way that they understand. But most importantly, the next example here gives a critique. Now here, I mean, you don't have to understand what is given here. Now, first, they start with what others have studied. They report this particular author conducted wind tunnel experiments. This is the reporting, right? And then measurements were taken using this is descriptions, right? Sample frequency, instantaneous emission were not specified. No, this is critiquing, right? So this is they have found some gaps, right? Missing details. Since the results were limited to the investigations to the wind speed were mildly retarded, statistical significance not provided, with the effect of although the Reynolds stress was reduced, this has demonstrated significant differences uh, and a greater turbulence intensity close to the roof, and they were not studied, right? So the results were limited to the investigations of one upstream wind speed. Now, this is a very clear way of spotting gaps, noting missing details, accuracies, maybe some sense accuracy or sampling frequency. Only one upstream velocity had been studied, and with one reading, no statistics can be done for testing of significance. And also, it says that it cannot be generalized because of the uncertainty in the turbulence metrics and so on. So first they describe certain things and then interpret and then try to critique, right? So it is done very meaningfully. This also with critiques. Now, this starts with a study done by Danica and Grant. Wind tunnels. Now, this is just description. The authors investigated. This is the description. Surface roughness was not specified. Dimensions were not defined. So they are trying to find omissions, gaps, right? Surface roughness not specified, dimensions unclear, only one speed investigated. So each missing detail is named and described, right? And then they say that the results indicated certain things, but the authors calculated certain things, but no analysis is made of multiple ducts. Right, all the authors hypothesize that they are criticizing the results based on the omissions. They argue that the information is not scientifically valid. Right, so they say that difficult to ascertain the results. Right, so this the so this the investigate, and therefore it is difficult to ascertain the relevance results for lower wind speed values. So this is a very critical way of evaluating the previous research, and also now this is critically evaluated, and I don't know what they are planning to do, but definitely they will highlight a research gap and they will formulate their research need thereafter, right? And I have another example given in the next page, again responding with critiques. This again, starting with this paper, they conducted wind tunnel experiments. That is the description. for wind speed data was normalized for the vertical component, that is the reporting and the interpretation. The results showed a strong mean flow shear with sharp vertical gradients. There was a slight increase in the velocity. These are all interpreting. And then the methodology of measurements and time averages were unclear. So they are now finding the gap, finding the uncertainty. Measurement period unclear, and transient effects were not considered. Approach flow is not specified, neglects to specify the controlled approach flow conditions. So they find uncertainties and gaps of the research, right, and explains what the consequences of that, right? So the starting with the description, interpretation, and then trying to find the gaps, critiquing. To have all these write-ups to be done, you have to first find the most relevant literature. You have to read them, summarize them, find connections, as I gave you from the Excel sheet, and then start with the description, interpretation, and then very good if you can do the critiquing part also, right? But definitely not only the description. At this stage, you have to do the interpretation also. Very good if you can do the critiquing part also. For description to critique, you can use these type of phrases. If you are doing descriptions, and if you are critiquing, you can use this shows that this is important because this is worth noting because this calls attention to, this can be illustrated by. On the left-hand side, this tells us that important, this suggests that, which points to, suggests that need for, which is vital, which is crucial, which shows, which illustrates, which is significant. Meaning all these will give you some important phrases that you can use for in interpreting certain write-ups. And whenever you read the paper, if you find these phrases, you can easily find out how they interpret the descriptions. But the language that you can use for critiquing, whenever you read papers, look for these phrases, right? A question that needs to be asked, however, is whether a weakness of this argument on one of the limitations with this explanation is that this approach fails to take into account the study would have been more useful. The finding may have been more applicable. Now, all these are just examples. They are not universal, but whenever you come across such phraseology, you can always take them as critiquing. These critiquing are very, very important in the literature search, reading, and taking notes. Right. I will give you two more examples. I will link them to this. I will not go through them today now. Please have a look at those two examples. I have highlighted certain parts of the two published papers to highlight the examples that I've already given. So in summary, you can use the literature to define the aims and objectives. Now, I have given some examples. I have discussed these examples in the previous slide, but whenever you want to highlight the aims and objectives, you can use the literature. You can see the blue color ones are the literature references to literature, and please have a look at how the authors have reviewed the literature and come up with the defining the objectives, right? So if I give an example, the above studies focus on blah, blah, blah. This is the review of the previous literature. Therefore, we used a CFW model to simulate the water content distribution, proposed and established a water content. This is the aim and the objective of the research, right? Now, the one in the down or left-hand side, by zooming out to spatial and temporal scales it is still possible to find evidence of thermal illustrated, right? However, investigation on this matter has been so far limited. This is the research gap, right? And then towards the end, the direct role of temperature, wind pattern, mechanical has been seldomly considered. So this is very clearly the authors are finding the research gap, the research need, and the objective of the study by looking at the previous live published papers. This is the kind of review that we are talking of. It's not summarizing. You need to have an understanding of what others have done and clearly synthesize ideas, put them together, and critically evaluate them, and then come up with the review. So these are the reviews that I'm talking of, not summarizing the literature. Right now, the right-hand side, the second paragraph and the middle in this study, a film was used to simulate the slope stability. Now, this is again the objective of the study has been stipulated, right? So I have given some examples here and there. And here also the main aim of the present study was to, now you can see how they have, now this is even though not giving any citations, this is how you do the literature review and the synthesis of your write-up, right? But all these are based on the literature that you read, summarize, analyze, synthesize, right? Then, whenever you want to highlight the research need, we just discussed about these words last time. You can use these adverbs. And the second usefulness of the literature review would be to define the aims and objectives as we discussed before, right? An example is given here. Please have a look at it, right? The third, the choice of research methods. Whenever you want to define the research methods, yes, definitely you have to look at the research the past literature. I have given you some examples to how to define the research methodology based on the previous research. Right, so the study on the left hand side, the study area has been described, and they have followed the selection criteria based on the previous researchers. On the right hand side, again, the methodology is described in another paper. Now they are planning to conduct a study based on the methodology based on previous studies, right? You can see the previous studies are quoted, and the methodology has been devised. And this is again literature review. You have to read literature, find the methodologies, put them together, refine them, and this is your own write-up. uh, Developing the methodology, and the write-up refers to the previously developed methodologies. But you can have your own methods as long as you are convinced that these methods are okay. But it's always good to look at the methods others have developed, because the previous studies have, if they have successfully concluded, you can rely on such methods. And also, the use of literature review is also for critical analysis. You should be able to demonstrate critical thinking and analysis, definitely, without which your thesis, your paper will not be interesting enough, right? So you have to do I have discussed this before. You have to do the correlation and interpretation of the experiments, the survey data. You have to interpret your results. You have to compare data and results of the previous findings. You have to analyze uncertainties and errors in your data. You have to discuss your methods, procedures in contrast to the others, in comparison with the others. And you need to weigh up factors affecting strategic decisions and critical comparison of information from other sources. So these were taken, these six were taken from the previous slides. So you have to make sure that you do a critical analysis of your results. Now, if you go by this last slide, you can see how now, apart from the previous studies, you can see how they have critically analyzed the previous studies. Right now, again, the on the left hand side, the second paragraph, the bottom here. Now, this part is entirely reporting and description, and there's no interpretation as such. But the second part is starting with the interpretation, and then the last part is the critiquing, right? However, now this word adverb is good. It is improved with the new vegetation criteria, and it is critically evaluating the new contribution and highlighting the importance of it, right? Uh, Right-hand side also, please have a look at this write-up to see how they have connected the ideas and arguments to make sure that the descriptive part becomes interpretive, and the write-up becomes a critiquing at the end, which are the most important in the literature review part. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the conclusion. Now, you have to understand that literature review is not just summarizing. It has to be first start with the finding proper literature. For that, you need to develop the research topic, and then define the research topic using keywords. With the keywords, you can find literature to read. When you read the literature, make summaries. When you make summaries, try to describe them, interpret them, find connections, and most of all, try to find gaps. Then you refine your research theme and you come up with a title. You set up your objectives, and once you have the objectives, you are ready to embark on your research. And then from there onwards, try to locate the most relevant high-quality sources for your reading, and then synthesize what you read by summarizing, interpreting them, try to provide critiques for what you have been reading, and always start writing. Start writing logically and avoid plagiarizing. Don't copy anything. Always try to give credit for others' work, and please keep good records of what you are reading, right? Without proper reading, sometimes it might be difficult for you to without keeping records, you might find it difficult to keep records on track on your previous reading, right? So this is what we have been discussing so far in this discussion.